Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. Two things before we start. First of all, we're going to be discussing spoilers throughout the current video. There is a lot of lore to go over, but it also concerns events that happen throughout the campaign, so yeah. Lots to talk about it, all of it spoilers. However, despite this warning, I want to go ahead and give you a moment where I can alert you to how you may want to play some of the future content. This will be a spoiler-ish type thing. It may give the game away. If you've finished the campaign, this is a recommendation that you may understand. If you've not, come back after you've finished the campaign and then listen to my recommendation for how you should play if you are on Warlock. This is a very odd note, but it's important to acknowledge. Secondly, I wanted to use this chance at the beginning of the video to apologize to the narrative team. While I stand by yesterday's critique, I feel as though the tone of the video when delivering said critique was far too adversarial and it was not correct. None of this is an excuse, but I was tired and frustrated, and the nature of day one content in any expansion means that everybody's very much in that place of high tension and nobody has gotten enough rest. So, understandably, it was much more likely to happen. I stand by my frustration because I believe that the reason for it is wholly justified, but the emotion that it evoked in my critique and the way it was redirected to all of you was unprofessional, and you all do deserve better. I'm going to try and continue to do what I do with channeling feedback of the community in your direction into something useful when the time is right. But for now, if nothing else, the sentiment and the reaction to the video yesterday is something that's worth looking at, because despite the fact that my delivery of it was less than graceful, I think that a lot of people have taken what I've said to heart and are in agreement. That thing has, as of last counting, 25,000 likes, so there's a lot of sentiment behind it. It's been out for less than 24 hours as of recording this video. So, yeah, pay attention. It does matter. But also, I'm very, very sorry. Regardless, we move on and learn from mistakes. So let's talk about some lore. Today, we're going to be talking about the Deterministic Chaos quest, and we're going to be talking about some stuff that's actually really cool on the lore and gameplay front of things. So without going into spoilers, if you're a Warlock, I have an extra step for you before you start the quest. And before I say what it is, I'm going to give you one last chance to get out now if you don't want to be spoiled, because the moment I say what it is, it gives you an idea of where narrative elements of the story for this quest are going, but it is something that will alter your experience for the better. It's kind of hard for me to even sit there and say any of this, so I guess the biggest point to be made is if you don't want additional spoilers for things, and if you would rather discover this mystery on your own, or through osmosis via someone else, turn off now. If you don't mind me giving you a little bit of an extra bit of context, then yeah, keep listening. So, with that fair warning given, here it is. If you are a Warlock, when you do this quest, you can activate alternate dialogue by wearing a certain Warlock exotic helmet, namely Nezarek's Sin. Big thank you to my raid team member Joe, who pointed this out to me late last night, because yeah, by doing that, she single-handedly made this video's content different, and without it, it would have been an entirely different video. So yeah, thank you, Joe. You certainly helped there. Our quest here is for the Deterministic Chaos. It's a void machine gun, and the story of this particular machine gun is very much linked to the Cloudstrider Rohan, and it actually starts off with Rohan's death and funeral or memorial service, which is portrayed in this scene here.
Today, we honor relentless Rohan, his service, his sacrifice. More than a protector of Neomuna, he was a true Cloudstrider. He cut his years short so that the whole of humanity may thrive far into the future.
Today we suffer, so tomorrow can live on.
So Nimbus's actions in this scene are a little bit odd because they choose to leave the memorial service early. Our quest, titled Unfinished Business, starts there, as we talk to Nimbus and find out why they left early. This gives us a look into something which maybe gives us a little more context on what the Veil is. I'm going to play that dialogue for you now. Apologies for the weird screen cutting off Nimbus here. I don't understand why it did that. It's a bug for sure, but yeah, the important bit is that you can still hear them and you can also read the text. So, without any further ado, here's Nimbus.
Brains. Oh, hey, Guardian. Induction ceremony wrap up all right? The citizens did a good job improvising. Traditionally, both Cloud Striders are there for the final handoff, but Rohan wasn't here, so... And if he were, he wouldn't be moaning about the past. He'd be too busy cracking open the veil, jumping through the portal, and knocking the witness back on its multiple asses. You know, the Vex were working on a copycat veil. Oh yeah, Rohan stumbled on it in the Nexus, years ago. It was half finished then, but he was convinced that the Vex had the goods on the original. Goods we'd need one day. Just think! We wrestle the Veil's secrets out of the Vex and we're one step closer to kicking down the Witness's door. But first, we gotta track down Rohan's notes. So, what do you say? Help me follow in the big guy's footsteps?
So, that's a lot. The text also gives us more context as well, essentially explaining that there is a copycat version of the Veil that the Vex were working on, and it was something that Rohan was trying to figure out and to find just one more time before he died. Because of course, Cloud Striders have an expiration date after 10 years. I originally thought this was going to be something closer to 100. It's actually 10, and you know what? Yeah, more power to them on that particular front of things. It only makes their sacrifice more gutsy. Nimbus believed that Rohan had succeeded in finding his way back into the Black Garden just before the Shadow Legion invasion had begun. At that point, then, Nimbus vowed to finish their mentor's old business. So begins our task. Although it has to be said that there's still no further context yet on what the Veil is, merely that the Vex of the Black Garden had the blueprints, or at least the capability to create an imitation of one. Kind of remarkable, considering that supposedly it's important enough that the Witness was looking after it, and, well, there's a bunch of different questions that follow on from that, but yeah, consider that the understanding of the copycat veil might help us, and actually you can see how important this is, especially if we actually want to know what the veil is. We should be pursuing any lead possible. And maybe this leads us to an actual explanation of what it is later down the line, so yeah, let's go ahead and follow this thread. We recovered first data from the Vex and Rohan's old notes, and by killing Vex around Neomuna and extracting data from cloud accretions on Neomuna's surface, we're able to adequately pinpoint the location of the final little bit of data that we need to collect. It's here in this fourth quest step, where we need to retrieve the final data packet, that Joe told me to wear Nezarek's Sin. From here on out, everything starts to change. For context as well, I want you to all understand why it's important to wear Nezarek's Sin, so I'm just going to go ahead and play something. If you've been running around Neomuna, you might have been hearing this. This is from a lost sector, but it's pretty much the same no matter where you hear it. Those unintelligible whispers are pretty threatening, and you can actually hear Nimbus also talking about them in the terminal overload activity, and they show up in a few other weird places. They show up a few times when this quest plays out normally. Here's the thing. Nezarek's Sin, if I'm hearing this from Joe correctly, taps into those whispers, and it makes it so that they can be understood. From here, when we go into Maya's retreat and retrieve the final data packet, we get the following interaction. Not only do we hear words from Nimbus, we then hear someone else speaking, and that line is clearly spoken by none other than Nezarec.
Hey, friends! Any updates? I got Osiris to help with the decoding, and to tell you the truth, he's getting on my nerves. Keeps asking how I'm doing, giving me these weird looks like I don't even know what.
The veil. So, the witch didn't ruin you during her escapade. Good.
It's pretty remarkable, but this one line of dialogue from the betrayer disciple, this one extra piece of context, provides us all with some remarkable insight into things further down the line on this quest and a few others that may be popping up. To be clear, Nezarec is absolutely the one who is talking here, and he seems to have a very clear intention, which is also to find the Veil. I say this based on the fact that he seems pleased that the Veil has not been ruined by the witch during her escapade. When Nezarec quotes the witch, I believe he's referring to Savathun, as she supposedly hid the Veil on Neptune during the collapse. Doing so apparently also stopped the witness from ultimately succeeding, and wiping humanity out and destroying the Traveler. So it was very important that that escapade succeeded. I think it's also worth referring to the fact that Nezarec here calls the Veil you, as if it's a person or something that is alive. I don't know what to make of that, but if the Veil is alive and is capable of personhood, that changes the stakes quite dramatically. From here, we move on with our investigation into Rohan's data, and the next bits of dialogue from Nimbus show us where we're headed next.
Okay, Nimbus, the last packet is on its... Wait, what's this pattern? Is this part of Rohan's notes?
What's it look like?
An hourglass.
The notes mostly talked about a garden, so... Not sure I get the connection. Not yet, anyway. Let's regroup. We'll have the last packet decoded by the time you get here.
Too risky.
Since when were you scared of a little risk?
The Black Garden does not contain a little risk. As for this second veil, to the vex of the Soul Divisive, it was the Black Heart.
Who cares what it's called? It's our chance to follow the witness.
Except it was destroyed years ago. Nimbus. I understand how grief can make one behave recklessly. But you can't...
Cloud Striders don't grieve. Death is just part of the flow.
Ah, Guardian. Perhaps you can convince our friend that the Black Heart is a dead end.
Hang on. If that heart thing was the same thing as the Veil, then its blueprint can be our guide to the real thing. Come on. All we gotta do is follow Rohan's instructions. He's never steered us wrong before.
You're right. It's at least worth a closer look. But please, let the Guardian handle the groundwork. This city can't afford to lose another Cloud Strider.
All I heard was you're right, so let's get cracking! I'll send you a list of what we need.
So that's a lot to unpack all of a sudden. Again, it feels like we're moving through this kind of at breakneck pace. Previously, it was rather remarkable that the Vex were even able to create a copy or a vague copycat of the Veil at all. Now it turns out that not only were they able to create that copycat, but they failed, and that failure was known as the Heart of the Black Garden. No wonder Rohan found it almost 10 years ago and it was half finished. 9 years ago, they had constructed the heart, and then we promptly turned up and destroyed it. Oddly enough, we never found out what the Heart of the Black Garden truly was either, other than speculation that it was a manifestation of pure darkness. We do know that the heart was beginning to poison the Traveler, though, and we also know that it was capable of inhabiting the Vex of the Soul Divisive. Frames that were around it were possessed by its influence and became even more powerful, turning from statues into live, autonomous enemies that were capable of fighting back. It's unclear if the heart of the Black Garden was perhaps a conduit for the Witness, and the failure to recreate it was perhaps because of its influence. Maybe the Witness is worshipped by the Vex of the Sol Divisive because it emerged from the heart of the Black Garden, and it itself was therefore the one capable of controlling those Vex. If you're looking for more talk and theory on the Veil, don't worry, I'm going to make a video on it at some point tomorrow or the day after. I'm not sure which, but one of these days we'll do the Veil and the other day we'll do Nezarec. You can count on that. It also becomes clear that if Nezarec is seeking the Veil, then he also has a keen interest in any potential copies of it. This will be relevant as we engage in our next steps to create Rohan's access key to the Black Garden. We need to recover a Seed of Silver Wings from the Typhon Imperator, which in itself is an incredibly rare item. Seeds of Silver Wings come from the Tree of Silver Wings and are commonly used to commune with darkness or powerful paracausal entities. It feeds off of the energy that is displayed within and around it. So, yeah, a Seed of Silver Wings just being on the Typhon Imperator in the first place is kind of ridiculous. But the other thing we need is a Vex Compass, and that can be found in the Thrillerdrome Lost Sector on Neomuna. When combining these two objects, we will create a passkey that allows us ingress into the Black Garden. However, in the process of retrieving the compass in the Thrillerdrome, I went back and got more of that unintelligible dialogue that I showed you earlier, except this time it was very much something that I could understand. Take a listen.
Line after line of circuitry, beckoning corruption.
After retrieving your compass, the ghost also says this.
An entertainment building with a back door into the city network. Makes me wonder what blind spots we have in the last city's defenses.
So I don't know about all of you, but considering the fact that Nezarec also shows up in the Vex Domain strike that we get from Lightfall, I feel as though Nezarec may be contained within the Vex Domain. And perhaps scarier still, I think the idea that there is a backdoor between the Vex Domain and the Cloud Ark of Neomuna, it's kind of troubling. This may be a way that Nezarec has been able to subvert and circumvent the defenses and digital failsafes and firewalls of Neomuna. After all, there are other bits and pieces where Nezarec's influence is clear to see, so we certainly need to be running through a lot of this and be asking those questions. All of that being said, I think that in this moment it matters more because Nezarec is probably able to monitor where we are within Vex installations, and I think that that means that he knows we're going to the Black Garden next. I'll have more on this in a dedicated Nezarec video, but for now, just know that he is watching. When we finally do construct our key, we're able to enter the Black Garden. At first it seems like Nimbus is convinced to let us go alone, albeit begrudgingly, by the words of Osiris. Our next objective ends up being to seek the Vex that holds the plan for this broken copycat of the Veil that turned into the heart of the Black Garden. The Vex Mind in question is a massive Sol Divisive Hydra known as the Conceptual Mind. When we actually follow Rohan's old path into the Black Garden, however, this is what happens.
We're in.
Good. Any sign of the Sol Divisive?
Not a Vex in sight. You should be proud, Nimbus. Rohan's passkey worked perfectly. I guess they're still hurt over missing out on the action.
All the more reason for them to stay out of the garden. It has a way of amplifying such emotions till they blot out all reason. So, quickly and quietly now. Find the conceptual mind, grab its memory core, and get out.
Roger that. The Soul Divisive. How did they know we were here?
Focus on getting past them now. We can dwell on the how later.
Made it through. Though I still don't understand how that happened. Unless we tripped an alarm on the way in.
It's possible. Perhaps Rohan's passkey had a flaw we didn't see.
But why not attack where we portaled in? Why let us get so far?
Are you suggesting someone else tipped off the Soul Divisive?
It's possible.
It's also disappointing. Stay on task. I'll go check on Nimbus.
Looks like someone beat us to the next security measure.
Sorry, friends. I couldn't sit this one out. I owe this to Rohan.
You owe it to Rohan to do your duty as a Cloud Strider.
Like you know what it means to be a Cloud Strider.
Whilst Nimbus runs ahead of us and trips countless Vex security measures, this happens, something unexpected, which changes the dynamic of the entire thing.
Taken? What are the Taken doing here?
I don't know about your end, but they're slowing me down over here.
Be careful. If the Taken are there, you're in for an even tougher fight than we expected.
After battling the initial Taken spawns and watching them assault the Vex of the Soul Divisive, Osiris says the following, contextualizing the appearance of the Taken with his perspective.
I suspect the Taken have been sent to do what the Soul Divisive refused to cover the Witness's tracks. Completely.
They're here for the conceptual mind.
Clearly, its knowledge presents a real threat to the Witness's plans. We need that memory core.
Nimbus, wait!
No time to lose. Last one to the conceptual mind is a disappointment to Rohan's legacy.
As if they needed more cores to act rashly. Guardian, you have to catch up with them before it's too late.
Now, if the whispers we'd seen throughout this quest were still unintelligible, I think I'd agree with Osiris, based on not having information to the contrary. But here's the thing. I think Osiris is wrong here. I think that these Taken were specifically thralls not under the control of the Witness. I think they have a different master, and I think that master is Nezarec. I think that they were specifically sent here to the Black Garden for the same reason that we arrived here, to recover the failed copycat version of the Veil, or at very least its blueprint and its data. I think this because the Witness already has control of the Soul Divisive, and it makes little sense for the Witness to need to act in this manner. The Soul Divisive would have predicted the Witness's desires based on its force of will and paracausal might alone. I find it highly unlikely that they wouldn't follow its direct orders as to ensure their own survival. After all, such is what the calculations would tell them to do. It's also worth noting that command of the Taken is specifically possible thanks to one having sufficient strength of will and dark power. Rulk was able to summon them in the depths of the pyramid, and if Nezarec is trapped somewhere within the Vex network, as might be the case, it's possible that he would be able to infiltrate the Black Garden with his own force of Taken. It's also worth remembering that Nezarec is a disciple, but he's also a traitor to the Witness, meaning that an opposition between these two forces is far more likely than it might seem. I also want to point out one other thing, which proves Osiris potentially to be incorrect, which is that the Soul Divisive were searching for Neomuna because they were searching for the Veil. They invaded the Spire of the Watcher for this reason, and if they hadn't invaded the Spire of the Watcher, they would have had the conceptual mind within their grasp. The Witness effectively already has access to this plan. If it just needed the heart of the Black Garden again, couldn't it just reinforce territory that it already controls? and then finally destroy it if it needed to be destroyed, or recreate it if it needed to be recreated? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I think that Osiris is incorrect here. Regardless of whether or not this is truth or idle speculation, we climb our way down from the Black Garden's central mesa and across the field of Asphodelia that we initially see ourselves in when the Witness first contacted us with its visions at the end of Shadowkeep. This, of course, is also part of the raid that you will see when you do Garden of Salvation. It's the end of the first encounter. But here, in this moment, we find Nimbus and a weapon left behind by their old master.
Nimbus, I know you feel you have to do this for Rohan's sake, but
Rohan is dead. I can't do anything for him anymore, except live up to what he taught me. The Cloud Strider does whatever it takes to keep Neomuna safe. We don't hesitate in the face of danger. We don't let pain stop us. We let it remind us that
you're still breathing, still fighting. Yes, I know. You shouldn't let pain stop you. But you can't let it propel you either. Trust me, that path only leads to more pain.
I found this. It's Cloud Strider tech, all right. Rohan probably ran right past this spot when he... Looking at this, all I can think of is how Rohan didn't need weapons or fancy mods. Sure, he liked his gear, but he didn't need all that to defend our city. To do his duty as a Cloud Strider. Just what I should be doing right now. You take it. Use it to get the blueprint. Meet me back in Neomuna when you're done, okay?
Osiris, we caught up with Nimbus. They're on their way back to Neomuna.
You convinced them. Well done, Guardian. Must be your way with words. But you'll need more than that if you're to reach the conceptual mind before the Taken. Don't forget what you're here for.
We're on the move.
Following this moment, we take up deterministic chaos, find the conceptual mind, and defeat it, taking its data core home with us for scrap. Deterministic chaos may not have been central to the lore displayed in the quest, but it was certainly a boon in the process of completing it. After returning to Osiris, he states that he and key scientists of Neomuna will study the Vex Mind's data in order to see if they can learn more about the Veil. I personally hope they get back to us with their findings sooner rather than later. Maybe that will answer the real pressing question of the expansion better than we currently can. Finally, before we ended the video, I wanted to leave you with the lore tab of Deterministic Chaos. It's weird because it's split into two perspectives. On the one hand, we have a bunch of lines with no grammar that are clearly from Rohan's perspective over a longer period of time, and show the moments at which he stumbled upon the creation of the Heart of the Black Garden, as well as some moments later in his life. There are, however, interjecting paragraphs that are from a different person's perspective, and they seem to be talking predominantly about this copycat version of the Veil and the Sol Divisive of the Black Garden. This makes me suspect that these are the words of Nezarec, but it's hard to confirm. I'm going to read both entries to you independently so that you can get the full picture. This is the perspective that appears to be from Rohan. Take a listen. He is fleeing the Vex across a verdant cliff. He is standing guard on the Cloud Arc Nexus border on Tramatane's orders. He is sitting next to Nimbus on the Watchtower ledge. He is trying to find a way out of this Daedal maze. He is trying to make sense of what he's looking at. He's trying to place the familiar voice echoing across the network. Would you like to dance? His foot crosses the quantum threshold before he's aware of it. His grip slackens and his gun falls into a bed of red flowers. His stomach churns with fear, regret, sudden doubt as to what he is witnessing. The birth of a god, a false idol, a reproduction that is both like the Veil and not at all, built up by the same Vex who bowed down to it. He is racing for the door that is at once opening and closing. He is coming around to the city council's decision to ignore the unknown threat. He is reaching for an answer to Nimbus's question. Do you think you'll have any regrets? He stares into the white-hot glow of a conflux, speculating on the secrets that lie within. He squints down the barrel of his gun at a row of glowing red eyes advancing on his city. He looks away from Nimbus's keen, curious expression to reckon with his uncertain certainty before he says, I don't know. And this is the portion in square brackets which appears to be from the perspective of Nezarec, but again, it's hard to confirm. I can tell you for certain, though, it is not from the perspective of Rohan. In the Garden of the Garden, both descriptions are approximately correct, but technically inaccurate. In the same way, you can say Schrodinger's cat is at once dead and alive. You and I are both and neither, in and of, extinct and perpetual. So, there isn't much point in wondering what might have been if we had stayed in our familiar prism prison, or kept tightrope walking across the quantum wilds. Instead, ask yourself, is disincorporated immortality really so bad compared to the other ends? Would you have preferred an attack by Vitreous Helicorporean, or stumbling over the edge of unreality? Imagine if we didn't have each other. At least we're not cut off, like the Sol Divisive are from the rest of the Vex. Nor are we beholden to another's purpose. They choose that lonelier path, all for a chance to create, not simulate, not remake in their image, something truly paracausal. Well, they tried anyway. Either the blueprint was imperfect, or the task was impossible, or both, or neither, but their efforts fell short. So now they're stuck waiting for a resurrection they know will never come. I could be wrong. Is it possible the Black Heart will beat again? Of course. The same as everything else, everything that has been, and is, and will be. And what will become of us then? I don't know. There are more mysteries to unravel, and we have only part of the answers here. But I believe we're on the cusp of learning more about the mysteries of the traitor disciple, and perhaps also we are on the cusp of learning what the Veil is too. At least one can hope. With all that being said, I'll get more video content to you guys and gals on this next time we get an upload out there. It will be on one of those two topics, either the Veil or Nezarec. As for everything else, in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like and also hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Down below in the comments section, let me know your own thoughts. Do you reckon that that is Nezarec in the Deterministic Chaos lore tab? Or do you think it's someone else? I'm not totally sure myself. Let me know what you think. But as per usual, know that as always your viewership is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.